There's a Chinese saying that says, it's actually a curse, a Chinese curse that says, may you live in interesting times. And these are interesting times for us. These are interesting times, and they always yield a lot of manthan. No one can escape the seeping of the identity politics that is coming into the United States and the changing discourse. There has been an assertion that there is a problem. There is a problem of caste, that not only do these Indian Americans come here, build America's economy, they come here as technocrats, as engineers, as doctors, as scientists, and even spelling bee champions. But along with them, they also bring this disease called caste discrimination. And while there is not much showing up in MRI scans or CT scans, there has been a big narrative that is being built in media, in politics. And the statements are being made that there is rampant caste discrimination in the United States, and our voices have not been heard. We have not been given a seat on the table, and despite a big grassroots movement that is coming up, and which is why there are so many of us, over 300 people who have come here, and over more hundreds and even around 1,000 who have registered online for Zoom sessions from all over the country. With this prognosis, there has been a prescription that we find even more dangerous. The prescription and solution is to add caste legislation in America. And that is what is concerning a lot of us, because we have seen that caste added to legislation in other countries, we've seen it, does not help. In fact, it seeps into the society as identity politics and divisiveness. It also, with this prescription also come many side effects, right? And there is harm that sometimes, like side effects printed on a drug, label, is in very fine print. And we want to look at it in a larger screen and a larger perspective to understand what are these harms that are going to come onto us as a community. What are the harms that are going to come into our education system for our children, for the next generation that has no understanding or seeding of caste consciousness in them? What are the harms that are going to come into law, into politics, and create problems in United States as a country that we all care about? So these are the issues that really need deep dive understanding. And for this, we have great experts today to help us understand what these issues are. And we have 4 tracks, like I said, community, education, law, and politics, and we will discuss threadbare. We will also have breakout sessions, and we have many interesting speakers, some surprise speakers. So please stay for the entire conference and take the chance to interact with everybody. We will also have press. Dia TV is covering this, P Gurus is covering it, we have PTI covering it. So we have a lot of people who are tuned in person, also online. So this is a very big event. As one of the journalists told me, we have never seen anything like this from the Indian community before, Indian American community. And this is really very important that all of you are here to participate. So thank you. I think, Panditji, I've covered most of the points.
May I add 1 or 2?
Yes, please do help with the mechanics of the conference. We have, I think, a lot of housekeeping announcements.
Thank you. I'm not going to be too long, but there are a couple of points I just wanted to mention. Firstly, although many of you know who we are, we do have an audience which is from across the globe. So I'm going to just backtrack a little bit and introduce. This is Richa Gautam. She is She is the publisher and author and writer of the Caste Files website. And that's a repository of pretty much everything we need. Don't you love artificial intelligence? All of this is supposed to be automatically done. Bear with me for one moment. Hopefully that's better. Can everybody hear okay? Yes. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And so this is, as I mentioned, Richa. My name is Dee Slade. I've been working on the caste issue ever since 2016. And so I have, shall we say, acquired a little bit of understanding. I've engaged with the parliamentarians in the United Kingdom and with academics and lawyers to try and get clarity on what this issue was. We found in the UK that the vast majority of parliamentarians had an awful lot on their desks, very little time and space to understand anything fully into its nuanced depths. And so they were making decisions which really weren't based upon sound legislative process and which had consequences which they had not considered. Over a period of 2 years, we engaged in a very robust community engagement. And at the end of a 2-year period, the vast majority of parliamentarians acknowledged that this was premature, it was malicious, and until the consequences were clear, it would not proceed. Since the inception, I think, of the same stage that you're all at now, we went through a journey of some 8 years, and even to this date, the legislation has not been passed. So there are elements of this which we would like to share with you, and I'm delighted that many of our local representatives and political influencers, as well as some of our assembly members, have registered. Hopefully we will see more of them as the day progresses. The last thing I would say is that in the room next door, P-Gurus have set up a recording studio. And so I'd really invite everybody to perhaps go and speak to them and share your thoughts on what's happened, how it's happened, and how it is that we've got here. And then also, if you have any thoughts and suggestions for the proceedings, do speak with Shri Ayerji. There is another gentleman who is wandering around, will wander around with a camera. If you want to give an interview, please also approach him as well. Okay? Right, thank you so much. I think we've one last thing to announce, and that this building is one of those smart buildings. It's very, very clever. On occasion, perhaps a little bit cleverer than we are. And so we've been engaged in a bit of a dance this morning, trying to get it to dance to our tune. And I think we've made an accommodation where we're both mutually uncomfortable or mutually comfortable. So if there are any little glitches as we go through, please excuse them. One last thing is Richard did mention this is a grassroots event. The people who have put this together have never done something like this before, but they felt there was a need to articulate a message. And so also do acknowledge their efforts and, as I say, be patient and forbearing if there are any slightly, let me say. Being a global conference, we have just had information that one of our prime speakers is stuck on an airplane flying between Dehradun and Delhi. And as soon as he lands, he's going to get out his phone and join us. Fortunately, that's one of the later sessions. But I think we're pretty much ready to start the first session.
Absolutely. I just want to quickly say that Panditji has written a book. It's available on Kindle as well. Caste Conversion, a Colonial Conspiracy. And, you know, this conference obviously is going to cover a lot of the harms that have been done, but we will also look at solutions. You know, we're always focused as a community on building solutions. So we will look at solutions as well. And we ask also for interactive sessions in between, afterwards as breakouts. And something that Panditji and I wrote yesterday, and I want to read it out, that we do have a solution to the proliferation of caste consciousness. It is also to the caste discrimination, if it exists at all in the United States. And in this conference, we do intend to discuss it and present it. So with that, I think I hand over the floor to...
Gentlemen are going to invite the speakers.
Namaste, everyone. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Sunday morning. To introduce ourselves, I'm Abhi. I'm an incoming junior at St. Francis High School.
And my name is Shrikar, but you guys can call me Abhi as well. And I am a college student studying business at San Francisco State University.
Harm to community cohesion. Inter and intra-community relations has been immediate and real. Although we feel it, can we name the harm, identify its effect, and quantify its impact? Pandit Satish K. Sharma joins keynote speakers Mama Dee Slade, Jane Elliott, Swami Ambikananda to start this journey. First up, we have Pandit Satish Sharma, who's a scholar, a Pandit of dharmic traditions, an interfaith speaker, a teacher of Jnana Yoga and Vishad Yoga, awarded the title of Dharma Samrakshak, authorized speaker on the 6 darshans. A quote by him is, "Caste is as much Hindu as abuse is Catholic. Terrorism is Muslim, miserliness is Jewish, and witch burning is Christian. All are hate tropes which need to be consigned to the dustbin of history as devices of division and conflict created by small hearts. I'm delighted to be a part of restoring Dharma and am honored to be with you here in Fremont." Next up, we have Dee Slade, who serves as the executive director for the African American Network of Kern County, or AANKC for short, a business and professional organization formed in 1990 to promote higher learning by creating programs to educate businesses, professionals, and the youth of the African American community. AANKC has since created multiple programs aimed at empowering Kern County youth and adults to embrace the many cultures and races that make Kern County a melting pot and to be good citizens. A quote, "We oppose SB 403A because both its legislative intent and impact will result in an unconstitutional denial of equal protection and due process to South Asians, the vast majority of whom are of Indian origin, and other vulnerable minorities. I look forward to seeing you in Fremont to restore unity and friendship."
In addition to these wonderful speakers, we also have Jane Elliott, an American diversity educator. Jane Elliott is an internationally known teacher, lecturer, diversity trainer, and recipient of the National Mental Health Association Award for famous brown eyes experiment. And she is acknowledged as one of the most influential racism educators in the US. One of her quotes that many of us may know is, and I quote, "Race is deliberately created and perpetuated to keep some people on top and some people on the bottom. And the thing that keeps it going is self-imposed ignorism." In addition to Jane Elliott, we also have Swami Ambikananda Saraswati, who is a priest, spiritual teacher, and a bestseller author. She is also a Hindu monastic and the founder of the Traditional Yoga Association, as well as teaching yoga. She is a certified acupuncturist and Jyotist, who is a Vedic astrologer. And her publications include Principles of Breathwork, Healing Yoga, and Age with Spirit, as well as translations of the Katha Upanishad and the Uddhava Gita, among others. And one of her famous quotes is, "First Portuguese and then British colonists distorted and corrupted the Varna system into a hierarchy of domination and exploitation, which they called caste. The colonists' mindset persists today, and the divide and conquer trope still holds true. Let us stand against it together. I look forward to speaking at this key conference." And with that, we'd like to invite all of our guests onto the stage to speak more on this matter.
I'm going to start with a little video, then we'll come back to you one at a time, and then we'll have a bit of a conversation about this. So please, if we can start the first video. This is a video which I came across quite some time ago, and I think it sets the stage perfectly. It's Jane Elliott doing an experiment with a very innocent young group of students, and it will really demonstrate the heart of this issue. Please play.
This is a special week. Does anybody know what it is?
National Brotherhood.
National Brotherhood Week. What's brotherhood? Treat everyone as though he was your brother. And is there anyone in this United States that we do not treat as our brothers?
Yes.
Who?
The
The black people. Who else?
Indians.
Absolutely the Indians. Many places in the United States. How are black people treated? How are Indians treated? How are people who are of a different color than we are treated?
They don't get anything in this world.
Why is that?
Because they're different color.
You think you know how that would feel to be judged by the color of your skin? I don't. Do you think you do? No, I don't think you'd know how that felt unless you had been through it, would you? It might be interesting to judge people today by the color of their eyes. Would you like to try this? Sounds like fun, doesn't it? Since I'm the teacher and I have blue eyes, I think maybe the blue-eyed people should be on top the first day. I mean, the blue-eyed people are the better people in this room. Oh, yes, they are.
Yeah.
Blue-eyed people are smarter than brown-eyed people. This is a fact. The brown-eyed people do not get to use the drinking fountain. You'll have to use the paper cups. You brown-eyed people are not to play with the blue-eyed people on the playground. Well, the brown-eyed people in this room today are going to wear collars so that we can tell from a distance what color your eyes are. You ready, Laurie?
Brown-eyed.
She's a brown-eyed. You'll begin to notice today that we spend a great deal of time waiting for brown-eyed people. I don't see the yardstick, do you?
It's coming over there. Hey, Miss Slade, you better keep that on your desk when the brown-eyed people get out of hand.
Oh, you think if the brown-eyed people get out of hand, that would be the thing to use? Who goes first to lunch?
Blue-eyed.
The blue-eyed people. Blue-eyed people may go back for seconds. Brown-eyed people do not.
Brown-eyed.
Don't you know?
They're not smart. And it seemed like when we were down on the bottom, everything bad was happening to us.
The way they treated you, you felt like you didn't even want to try to do anything.
It seemed like Mrs. Elliott was taking our best friends away from us.
What happened at recess? Were two of you boys fighting?
Russell called me names and I hit him in the gut.
What did he call you?
Brown eyes. They always call us that.
They keep calling us brown eyes.
What's wrong with being called brown-eyed?
It means that we're stupider.
I watched what had been marvelous, cooperative, wonderful, thoughtful children turn into nasty, vicious, discriminating little third graders in a space of 15 minutes. Yesterday, I told you that brown-eyed people aren't as good as blue-eyed people. That wasn't true. I lied to you yesterday. The truth is that brown-eyed people are better than blue-eyed people. Russell, where are your glasses?
I forgot them.
You forgot them. And what color are your eyes?
Boo.
Susan Ginder has brown eyes. She didn't forget her glasses. Russell Ring has blue eyes, and what about his glasses?
He forgot them.
He forgot them. Yesterday we were visiting and Greg said, "Boy, I like to hit my little sister as hard as I can. That's fun." What does that tell you about blue-eyed people?
They're naughty.
The brown-eyed people may take off their collars, and each of you may put your collar on a blue-eyed person. The brown-eyed people get 5 extra minutes of recess. You blue-eyed people are not allowed to be on the playground equipment. You blue-eyed people are not to play with the brown-eyed people. Brown-eyed people are better than blue-eyed people. They're smarter than blue-eyed people. And if you don't believe it, look at Brian. I use Orton Gillingham Phonics. We use the card pack. The brown-eyed children were in the low class the first day, and it took them 5.5 minutes to get through the card pack. The second day, it took them 2.5 minutes. The only thing that had changed was the fact that now they were superior people. You went faster than I ever had anyone go through the card pack. Why couldn't you get them yesterday?
We had those collars on.
You think the collars kept you?
just keep thinking about those collars.
Oh, and you couldn't think as well with the collars on. 4 minutes and 18 seconds. How long did it take you yesterday?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. How long did it take you today?
4 minutes and 18 seconds.
What happened?
One down.
What were you thinking of?
This.
I hate today.
How do you do? I hate too.
Because I'm blue-eyed.
See, I am too.
There's nothing, it's not funny, it's not fun, it's not pleasant. This is a filthy, nasty word called discrimination. We're treating people a certain way because they are different from the rest of us. Is that fair?
No.
Nothing fair about it. We didn't say this was going to be a fair day, did we?
No.
And it isn't. It's a horrid day. Okay, you ready? What did you people who are wearing blue collars now find out today?
I know what they felt like yesterday.
I did too. How did they feel yesterday?
Down. Like a dog on a leash. Yeah. Like you're chaining them up into prison. Like and you're throwing the key away.
Should the color of some other person's eyes have anything to do with how you treat them?
No.
All right, then should the color of their skin?
No.
Should you judge people by the color of their skin?
No.
When you see a black man or an Indian or someone walking down the street, are you going to say, look at that silly looking thing?
No.
Does it make any difference whether their skin is black or white?
No.
Or yellow?
No.
Or red?
No.
Is that how you decide whether people are good or bad?
No.
Is that what makes people good or bad?
No.
Now you know a little bit more than you knew at the beginning of this week?
Yes.
Okay, now are you back?
Yes.
That feel better?
Yes.
Does the color of eyes that you have make any difference in the kind of person you are?
Listen, Valley.
I'm sure you'll agree that as
Thank you.
that was such a simple lesson for all of us, but I want to pick on one or 2 points which it established. Firstly, the children at the beginning were actually all friends together. They were one group. And yet, in such a simple moment, consciousness of difference was seeded. And that consciousness of difference has been used as a mechanism for dividing and ruling people for a long period of time. We're in 2023. Yes, sorry, I live in a timeless space, the ever present. But we're in 2023, and we are still seeing this same evil practice being used to seed difference, to create conflict, to create a lack of self-worth in one group, and to create a sense of supremacy in another group, and then to harvest the fruits. Because if you claim to have the medicine which is going to fix all of this, you have a wonderful tool for creating endless sources of demand. Feeding caste consciousness is exactly the same process. I'm going to share with you some ideas which will prove to you that prior to the appearance of the British colonizers, who used this divide and conquer strategy so successfully in every corner of the world, that prior to their arrival in India, we had completely different structures for functioning, and society worked differently. And I thought to myself, before I invite Jane to speak, wouldn't it be nice if I could find an American origin commentator who ventured all the way to India and recorded, as far back as 1929, what he discovered when he arrived there. And being a person who walks down dusty avenues looking for old bookshops and so on, I came across one record, and I'm just going to read a small paragraph. This is the Reverend Jabez T. Sutherland in 1929. He went to India because he'd heard that the British were doing terrible things there. And he recorded all of his observations in a number of books, and this is one such book. And he writes, the British had this policy of declaring that they had to rule India for the good of the Indians. And it was an obligation because caste was such an evil and pernicious institution, so he went to check it out. And this is what he wrote: Brahmins, the highest caste, and I have yet to find any person who can tell me the metric whereby they were measured as being higher and lower. It was never money, it was never power, it was never wealth, it was never numbers. And so the metric whereby upper and lower is established, nobody has ever answered that question. And I've asked many of the commentators who claim that this is intrinsic to our tradition. Brahmins, the highest caste, fill all grades of political office, so do Shudras, the lowest castes. Even outcasts may be active and influential in politics, as is the case of the mayor of the southern city already mentioned. The Gaikwad of Baroda, the ruler of the most advanced Indian state, is a Shudra, so is the Maharaja of Gwalior, an important state. The Maharaja of Mysore is a Vaishya, and next to the lowest caste, the Honorable G.K. Gokhale, who was long a member of the Viceroy's Council and was regarded as the greatest statesman that modern India has produced, belonged to one of the lower castes. The same is true even of Gandhi. So this is a first-hand account of an unbiased observer, and he continues to drive home the point that the British are spreading the idea that caste is pernicious and a part of India, and it doesn't bear scrutiny. So that's the first thing I'd like to share with you. You've seen how with the children, we had this notion of how quickly you could establish this divide and rule meme and this mimetic virus. We saw that being done here in the valley. Only a short few years ago, there was no caste consciousness. And then the allegations started to spread. And then the cases were talked about. And the CRD, I was shocked to hear, actually went to the great extremes of publicizing cases and certain aspects of cases rather than maintaining neutrality. They added to seeding caste consciousness. We're right in the middle of that experiment. And I'm also going to make a suggestion that the only solution is the solution which Jane instituted in her class, and that was to remove consciousness of hierarchical difference. That will be the only long-term peaceful solution in this, and it's the right and just solution. The only way to get rid of a trope is to dismantle it and dissolve it. And so as we work through this afternoon sessions and this morning sessions, I'd like you all to bear that in mind. Now, although it's a Sunday, and many of you feel that you've taken a valuable rest day out of your busy week and you'd like to be here and relax and to receive, that's not the way we do things. We're going to give you ample opportunity to actually turn towards each other, to speak with the people who are on the tables and explore some of these ideas. Because if you leave here having achieved nothing except being entertained, then we have failed. So far, the community has tried its best to engage with policymakers and legislators, and their voice hasn't been heard. Their hearts have not been touched. Somehow, we, this mysterious community who defy the medium when it comes to crime statistics, when it comes to family structures being robust, somehow we have a dark secret that nobody has ever heard of, and yet it's so terrible that legislators have to act with such speed as though they're dealing with what in Latin is called a crimum bonum, a crime of such terror that legislation has to be passed, bypassing all of the checks and balances. When you leave here, I hope you have everything you need to scrutinize the process as well as the ideas that have been presented to you. Now, it gives me a great pleasure to introduce a person who's been a personal fan of mine. I've followed her work with great interest and received so many inspired moments from her. And I'd like her to share with you her understanding and some of the snippets she's managed to gather on the subject of race, because race was probably one of the first of the divide and rule policies which was implemented on this scale. And it's not a coincidence that those who are wanting to replicate it want caste to be a feature of race. And so I'd like to introduce Jane Elliott. And Jane, if you could have a few words with us, that would be wonderful. And then we will go through, okay, Dee has disappeared. But after Jane, just to give a bit of advance notice, it'd be wonderful if Dee could pick up the thread as soon as Jane's finished. And then Swamiji, if you could conclude with some more words of wisdom. We are blessed to have three persons who I think of as matriarchs in the traditional sense.
Now, can you hear me? I can hear and see you. Can you hear me?
We can hear and see you absolutely wonderfully, Jane. Please
Wonderful.
Take it away.
Okay, then I'm going to take it away, and I'm going to irritate everyone in this room. Number one, race and caste are both damn lies. It's absolutely unacceptable to consider caste anymore and to consider race anymore. The word race, to mean a specific group of people, came out of France in 1580. People say to me, it's been going on forever. Why are you trying to fight this? It hasn't been going on forever. It has been going on since 1580. People, that's less than 500 years. Previous to 1580, previous to the Spanish Inquisition, people were just people. We were all part of the family of man. And then suddenly Torquemada comes along, trying to turn everybody into Catholics, was going to kill anybody who wasn't Christian, had killed over 2,000 people, and somebody said, you killed a lot of Christians. At that point, he realized that you couldn't tell what a person's religion was by looking at them. So he had to find a way to decide who must deserve to die. And he set upon skin color. He called lighter colored people white, because white is the color of purity and goodness. He called darker people black, because black is the color of savagery and evil. We have been living with those two words for almost 500 years. It's time to give that up, people. There are no white people. They do not exist. Unless you have no melanin in your skin, you are not white. There are no white people, and there are no black people. It's time to get rid of those two terms. If you're going to use the terms of the late 1400s and 1500s, if you're going to use that vernacular, then you must also use the kinds of clothes they wore at those times, the kinds of communication they used, and the kinds of transportation they used. And I want to see all you young men stand up and show me your pointy-toed shoes and your knee-length pants and your powdered wigs. If you're going to live the way they lived in the 1400s and 1500s, then by the gods of war, let's do it wholeheartedly. There was no mention of race until the Spanish Inquisition. It's time to give it up, people. You are all members of the same race. There's only one race of people on the face of the earth, and that's the human race, and you are all members of it. Every person in this room is my 30th to 50th cousin. Now, you might not like being my cousin, but you are my 30th to 50th cousins, because you were born and raised on this earth. Get over it, people. Get over the idea of the rightness of whiteness. People say to me, well, white rhymes with right. I say, yeah, it also rhymes with fight and fright and slight. Get over it. We are all shades of brown. And I'll tell you how to solve this problem. Get a copy of the Pantone color wheel. Have you ever seen the Pantone color wheel? This is a color wheel of skin colors. On this color wheel are the skin colors of every human being, and you are all human beings on the face of the earth. You get this up, put it on the wall, enlarge it so that your kids or your students or whoever, whatever age you have, can go up, put their palms on that color wheel and run their palms around until they come to a color that matches the color on the back of their hand. Then go to the thesaurus, the big thesaurus, not the little one, the big thesaurus, and look up the synonyms for brown. You will find over 100 synonyms for brown, people. Pick the one that you think matches your skin color, and then go to the dictionary and look up that word and see what that word means in the dictionary. Then the next time you have to fill in a form where it says race, put human. And where it says skin color, put whatever skin you saw, whatever your color was on the Pantone color wheel. Now, if you think I'm out of my mind, I am slightly out of my mind, because I've been doing this so long and I'm so god-awful mad at what's going on. People, get a copy of this magazine. National Geographic magazine for April. Dee, you're nodding. I take it you've seen this magazine, Dee. It is full of April 2018. People, get this magazine. Download this map of the world, and it shows where human beings came from and how they managed to populate every landmass on the face of the earth. Every landmass on the face of the earth was originally populated by people from Africa. People, you've got to get this into people's heads, and you've got to do it now. We're running on real short time, folks. Within 25 years, white people, what we call white people, and they aren't white. We've got to come up with a new word for white. People, if you don't have enough iron in your blood to keep it healthy, you're called anemic. If you don't have enough melanin in your blood, in your skin to protect you from the dangerous rays of the sun, you must be melanemic. If you have more melanin in your skin, you're melanaceous, which rhymes with gracious and spacious and efficacious. It is not a negative term. If you have a lot of melanin in your skin, you're called melanotic. And melanotic is in the dictionary, and it means having a lot of melanin in your skin so that your skin is dark brown to almost black. It doesn't say too black. You are not black. You are very dark brown people. It's time to get educated. I'm an educator. The word educator comes from the root duck deuce, which means lead, the prefix e, which means out, the suffix ate, which means the act of, and the suffix or, which means one who does. An educator is one who is engaged in the act of leading people out of ignorance. And the number one ignorance in the United States of America and in the world at this point is the ignorance of believing that skin color is a determination of your worth as a human being or of your intelligence. Skin color has nothing to do with your intelligence. What it has to do with is the desire of, I'm sorry, but melanemic people to prove their strength and their brilliance by killing those who disagree with them. We've been doing it for 500 years. It's time to put a stop to it. It's time to put a stop to it now. In the United States of America, and I want you not to call this country America any longer. If you can possibly give up calling this country America, I would appreciate it. America is everything from the northernmost point of Canada to the southernmost point of South America. All the citizens in all those countries are Americans. The United States of America is the 48 contiguous states, Alaska, Hawaii, and the islands off the southeastern coast of the United States. That should be called the United States of America. That's what it is. Now, if you don't want to use all those syllables, call it the U.S., because U.S. spells us. And it means those of us who are citizens of the United States of America. It's extremely important that we do that because 6 years ago, some fools elected a so-called president to this country who was determined and is still determined to divide this country. We've got to get back to seeing the United States as the United States of America, not just America, and to inviting in and appreciating all those immigrants who have made this country as great as it is. Immigration is the most important thing that has ever happened in the United States of America, people. And the indigenous population accuse me of indigenous erasure because I say, look, even what we called Native Americans came to this continent from Africa. Get over this nonsense and start educating people to the truth instead of the lie. Now, we've got another problem in this country. It's going to make it worse for those of you who are not what we call US people and Christians. Right now, we have a bunch of people in this country, the evangelical Christians, who are trying to take us back to the 1940s. You have to be aware of the danger of that group. They are the most dangerous group I have ever seen, and they are determined to turn this country back about 500 years. We have to put a stop to this, folks. We have to do it, and we have to do it now. If Christianity is the only thing that will allow you to become a citizen of the United States is going to become very, very small and very, very powerless. We have to put a stop to this. We have to realize that without all those other, there are three things I want you to remember about what I'm saying. Some of you are going to have a real hard time with this, but three things you have to remember. Number one, without what we call blacks, there would be no what we call whites. That's a fact. We are all descendants of those people from Africa. And if you trace your DNA back far enough, you'll find some DNA from a country in Africa. Number one. Number two, without the Jews, there would be no Christians. The first 5 books of the Old Testament came out of the Torah. So these Proud Boys who marched down the street saying, Jews will not replace us. I think you fools, you were Jewish before you were Christian. Get over
Forgive
it.
Forgive me for interrupting, Jane. May I just give you 2 more minutes to wind up, and then we'll have a further conversation as well. So 2 more minutes, and then...
Well, just let me say it. Without women, there would be no men.
Please.
Without women, there would be no men. Without women, there will be no men. Without women, there will be no men. I will keep on saying that until you say it's time for you to stop now, Ms. Elliott. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you very much, Jane.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Jane. Before we go to Mama Dee, I just want to introduce everyone to an idea we call adhikar. Adhikar means that it's the right to be able to participate in something. Now, what adhikar for us is listen to people who have earned the right to be able to speak to you and to share wisdom with you. Be careful of listening to people who have not earned that right. They may be loquacious, they may be verbose, they may be eloquent, but if they have not earned the right to speak to you and share wisdom, then always have a second thought. Now, the ladies who are speaking on the panel, I don't think there is anybody in this room who would be courageous enough to challenge the idea that they have earned the right to speak wisdom and to speak it in the manner that they do. So deeply, deeply grateful to Jane and indeed the others who are going to speak in a moment for their contribution. Mama Dee, thank you so much. Your opening remarks, please. You have 6 to 7 minutes. I'm sure that you're not going to be constrained by that, so please do get into the flow. And forgive me for interrupting you when it approaches the end of that time. Thank you very much, Mama Dee, for joining us. Please share.
Thank you so much. And to the convener, to you and the guests that are here, and oh my God, these prestigious colleagues that are sitting here. Thank you, Miss Elliott. And I'm waiting to hear from our other distinguished speaker. I am honored to have the pleasure to share. And as Miss Elliott stated, and as part of the Each One Teach One Partners in Progress program that we teach about culture. We teach about appreciation of the differences that we are. We teach about customs and religions, and that they're not a threat to the United States of America, because guess what? 1619, and prior to that, early years of 17, Africans were brought to this country to build it. And in the process of building, you have what you call today biracial. Many of us are biracial. Native American runs through my veins. Africa is in my veins. I also have islanders in my veins. There was a marriage between a man and a woman. There wasn't a marriage, but there was producing children. The Africans produced many biracial children. So we encourage people to study the history of the United States. That's how you're going to understand racism, caste, segregation. It's all the same. It's to keep a darker color of people under control, to keep them as part of the labor in building this country with no pay. No pay. We're feeding you, we're clothing you. I'm your master, you're on my plantation. So why should I pay you? I own you, but you're lower than a horse. You're lower than my cattle that you herd and feed every day. You're not human. You shouldn't be educated. And if you're caught, we're going to make you an example, hanging you, cutting your feet off if you try to run away to another state. Many Africans tried to go back to Africa, had no idea where they were, what direction. So many of them tried, were killed, were hung, were burned, lived in shanties, barely clothed, worked from sunup to sundown. So you tell me about caste. Caste was there. Why is it coming up again? We put a Band-Aid on it with civil rights. Civil Rights Act. The very first, when you hear about the Constitution, you need to study that. How the Bill of Rights, free speech was number one. How the small number of Africans, or a few African born of the Africans, fought to put the 13th Amendment. They wanted that. They wanted to be free. But with that came a lot of pain. But guess what? That small number of slaves and their African-born children said, it's worth it. I might as well die trying. Some did it. But guess what? That 13th Amendment is there, and that 13th Amendment is the beacon for every immigrant and anyone within the United States of America to be free. Number one amendment is free speech. The 14th Amendment said, oh, we're going to make you a citizen. But guess what? Slaves really were not citizens. It was a word. Trying to purchase a home, trying to write, make an X, because some didn't know how to write. Pay taxes, didn't quite understand that. I own the land, but the land can be taken from me. Some never educated, but they dreamed and they prayed for freedom and for the United States of America to acknowledge them. And let me tell you something else about the culture. They were a part of every war in this United States, the Revolution, the Civil War, and after the Civil War, Congress granted 1866 the Buffalo Soldiers, who were slaves, to rebuild what was torn down during the Civil War. African-American descendants of slaves built California parks, Yosemite, yes, Sequoia, yes, they rebuilt buildings, houses, whatever. They also ran the stagecoach. That's your mail. Do you ever hear about that? Absolutely not. So there's no understanding of this word caste, racism. No one understands it because you don't have the history to put it together. Miss Elliott, she did an excellent job with those students. We're together, we love each other because you look like me. But then when we distinguish a difference between us, and what I experience is called divide and conquer. No group should let anyone divide you. Come together. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to have opinions. It's okay to dream, to have visions. It's not okay to compromise because you have to keep moving forward as a group of understanding one another to fight the ignorance of others. And that's what it is. Some do not know history of the United States of America. They're fearful because someone has influenced them. The darker they are, they're criminals, they're thieves, they will brutalize you, et cetera, et cetera. Same thing applies to a lighter shade of person. A European of fair skin will brutalize you just like a person of dark skin. And that's because it's fear of one another. We don't appreciate each other. We don't look at each other as a man, regardless of Native American here in the United States or an Indian that comes from abroad. We're still a man. Same thing with a woman. A woman is a woman. We're beautiful in what shade of color we are. A man is distinguished of highest esteem, no matter what color, his education, his status quo. He is still a creature of dominance here on this earth. But there are those that don't understand that. They have no humility. They don't understand the human race. And this is what I advocate for. Understand who you think is your enemy. Don't look at the color of my skin. Don't look at where I come from. Don't look at how much money I have or the zip code I live in. Look at me. Talk to me. Find out who I am. And this is what we teach our students. I have many students that call me Mama D. That's a name that they pleasure because to all of them in our programs, we teach the first thing. Ethical behavior, respect. If what you don't understand, research it. There are numerous books, authors, educators, institutions that can help you understand where you live, who live in your neighborhood. Those who are in the leadership role, do not fear them. We introduce our students from K on up to adult. Go talk to your leaders within your community. Have a relationship with them if you can. Let them know more about you and find out who they are. Everyone within the United States of America, as well as the world, have an opportunity, an obligation to teach and to be proud of who they are. I am proud of who I am. I've been in situations of being denied. Guess what? I stand there. Did I take up arms? No, I did not. Was I threatened with someone with arms? No, I was not. Because I let them know your ignorance is what's in front of you, young man or young woman. Flip me a bird, it didn't hurt. I just know your shortcomings. You don't know anything about me. The cell phone that you're using and talking less to an African American born The gamma electric cell was invented by a Black man, the first nuclear engineer in the United States. Your railroad crossing, a Black man. You love a tablet. You love your computers, your color screens, your light switch, your air conditioning, your refrigeration. Study that. You'll see that the Africans and then later African-American borns built many, created many inventions, built many buildings, architectural design. Many on the
2
front.
minutes. 2 minutes, Mama Dee, please, if you could.
Okay,
Thank
many on the front of the medical community. Many created teaching instructions. Many went into the judicial. Small numbers, but it's there for everyone to enjoy. You don't see us standing at the door saying you can't enjoy something that was created by people that look like me. So if you leave with anything today, start researching and be proud of who you are. And yes, the fight, it has been going on, like Miss Elliott said. I guess I'll die and it'll still be going on. But take up the fight of knowledge. Take up the fight to stand up and say this is wrong. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Mama Dee. Thank you. Thank you so much. Before I invite Swami Ambikananda to share some thoughts, there were a couple of points that Mama Dee raised there, which I want to make sure we didn't miss. A short while ago, a little video clip emerged from our community, which highlighted the notion that everybody is talking about caste to everybody else, except talking to us about it. Yeah? And there is something which I call the colonizer mind, which I think would be really good to understand. The colonizer mind is something which is like a mimetic virus. It can be communicated and it can be spread, but it has a certain pathology. And I'm going to read some words which sprang to my mind when I read the clauses that were being put forward in this SB 40 something or other. So the words are as follows: invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens and pagans whatsoever, and other enemies of Christ wheresoever placed, and the kingdoms, dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, and all movable and immovable goods whatsoever held and possessed by them, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery, and to apply and appropriate to themselves and his successors the kingdoms, dukedoms, countries, counties, principalities, possessions, and goods, and to convert them to his and their use and profit. One small paragraph, and we are all here as a consequence of that one small paragraph. Some scholars will have recognized it. Is there anybody who recognizes that? It was the first piece of legislation which empowered the legitimate use of force on those principles. 1452, it's the piece of legislation which encouraged so many people to venture out into the world and take what was not theirs, to dehumanize, to vilify, and to diminish other souls. We are here because one young man, fueled by those words, felt he had the authority to go in search of India, the fabled land of India. And he wasn't going there to bring them human rights, unlike your current ambassador, which is an interesting observation. He was there to take and to steal because the people there were not fully humans. Persona non grata means you haven't even granted the status of being a person to that being. They were part of the animal kingdom. This is the impact of words. This is the papal bull, which was known as the doctrine of discovery. And it's the doctrine which says, I have some right to fix you. You can't fix your own house, I can do it. And the moment you have one person from one group standing up, courageous enough to say, I know how to fix that group, it should ring an alarm bell. The only way we survive in comfort is if I look after my home and do the best that I can, let my neighbor look after his home so that he can do the best, or she can do the best, or they can do the best. I'm in California, aren't I? And between the two of us, we can turn to each other and say, can we help each other? But if I throw stones at his house and he throws stones at my house, all of our houses are destroyed. This is such a simple principle. SB 403 flies in the face of that, and yet it works on the basis of this doctrine of discovery. This is the doctrine which your countryman, Jabez Sutherland, referred to when he penned a poem. It was a poem written by a colleague of his called Shadwell, and he said, if you see an island shore which has not been grabbed before, lying in the track of trade as islands should, with the simple native quite unprepared to make a fight, oh, you should just drop in and take it for his good. Not for love of money, be it understood, but you row yourself to the land with a Bible in your hand, and you pray for him and rob him for his good. If he hollers, then you shoot him for his good. All this lesson I can shape to campaigning at the Cape where the boar is being hunted for his good. He would welcome British rule if he weren't a blaming fool. Thus you see it's only for his good. So they're burning houses for his good, making helpless women homeless for their good, leaving little children orphans for their good. In India, there are bloody sites booting out the Hindus' rights, where we've slaughtered many millions for their good. And with bullet and with brand desolated all the land, but you know we did it only for their good. Yes, and still more far away, down in China, let us say, where the Christian robs the heathen for his good. You may burn and you may shoot, you may fill your sack with loot, but be sure you do it only for his good. If you dare commit a wrong on the weak because you're strong, you may do it if you do it for his good. You may rob him if you do it for his good. You may kill him if you do it for his good. You may legislate against the Hindus of California so long as you do it for their good. Turning to discriminatory civilizational practices and the adhikar of people who have experienced firsthand, I'm going to share with you that Swami Ambikananda, who is a Brahmin according to our tradition, in that she is revered, she is acknowledged as a priest, and yet has no hereditary, hierarchical, endogamous privilege to say that she is qualified as a Brahmin. That's one of the planks of this equality, whatever. Thank you for completing. I've been trying to erase it from my mind. They assert that Hindus are casteist, that we have a rigid hierarchy and a structure which imposes upon you at birth what your status is. And that's what you're destined to be, and that's what you will remain. And there are penalties if you venture outside of those boundaries. It's utter nonsense. There's been a conflation of the caste word with a word that we have called Varna. And I would like you all to do an experiment. Once Swami Ambikananda has concluded, I'm going to try and draw the results from you. On the CasteCon.com website, a button has magically appeared, as these things do, and it says, what's your Varna? I would invite each and every one of you, when you have an opportunity, to take your phone out, go to the website. All you need to know is your date of birth and your location of birth. Hit the magic button, and let's see what it shares with us. I look forward to finding out a bit more about you. It may well be that it's complete nonsense. It may well be that it's religious mumbo jumbo, but we have the freedom to say it doesn't harm anybody else. And so I'm sharing with you the opportunity to explore that. It's important because it establishes a principle that in our tradition, if you incarnate as a human being, you have a Varna. There is no such thing as a human being without Varna, unless that person has engaged in such spiritual austerities that they no longer have bodily identification. They are established in spirit and the unity of spirit. That's the only person who can say, I now have no Varna, I am no longer controlled by Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. So even the persons who are not of Indian origin, I would love for you to have a look and see what your Varna is. And then we can have a conversation about whether the Hindus of India are so exclusivist that they created an untouchable class. They created other classes which didn't even have varnas. It's not true. Everybody has a varna. On that note, I would like to invite Swami Ambikananda to join us. And Om Swamiji, you have 6-7 minutes. Please do take the floor. Thank you.
Good morning to all, although it's evening here in the UK, and to my fellow panelists, Ms. Jane Elliott and Mama Dee, thank you. It was beautiful. 25 years ago, I took sannyas, and what quickly emerged for me is that donning this robe meant that people who find themselves in one of those challenging situations of life would be approaching me. So for over 25 years, I've listened to both strangers and friends in some of their darkest moments. And what has emerged for me is that we as humans are now in an existential crisis. Since the dawn of industrialization, every attempt has been made to reduce our humanity. We are told we are empty biomechanisms, purchasing machines, entirely at the mercy of selfish genes that demand our reproduction, and market forces that demand that we do nothing but consume. Nothing else. We are encouraged to consign everything else to myth and to very vigorously resist it. Meaning has been stripped from life. The great Viktor Frankl, concentration camp survivor, taught us we can bear almost any how if we know a why. The search for why is marked by the giants that have reduced us. Yet, almost every person I encounter in a difficult and dark situation are seeking not just a way out of that situation, they also deeply, at a fundamental level, want to understand why. And it's this that has brought me to reappraise Varna, which colonization distorted into the caste system. The Portuguese came first, they were the first to encounter it, and they named it Casta. When the British came, they took that up and they created the caste system. And it was a system of divide and rule, a hierarchy of domination and exploitation that very much mirrored the one they had created on these British Isles. In the Sanatana Dharma, we do have something known, as Panditji has said, as Varna. First, I have to tell you, Sanskrit is a dynamic and extremely subtle language. Varna means color or dye or covering. It's not the color of our skin. It is the color of our internal landscape. It's the internal characteristics that marks that in us which is unchanging and eternal, Atma. On the battlefield, Kshetra, where mighty forces were arrayed against each other, the avatar, Bhagavan Shri Krishna, took up the chariot reins of his friend and disciple and invited him to look at the enemy. And thus the great teaching of the Bhagavad Gita began, when Arjuna, the consummate disciple, looked at people that he should be friends with, he bought. And in that moment, many of the great teachings of the Gita emerged, and Varna was one of them. Chapter 4, verse 14, Krishna tells us everybody has a guna and a karma, and these are what define our Varna. Guna is an inner characteristic, a kind of thread, a deep impulse that defines us. And karma is the action we take. And what defines our actions? Our guna. we don't all react in the same way because everybody has a different guna. But as Panditji said, everybody has a guna and everybody acts on it. In the hours I sit in the morning in this room and do my meditation and my study, I am so much a Brahmin. I'm calm, studious, listening for that transcendent inner voice rather than the meanderings of my own mind. But then I get up and I encounter the day, and my true Varna emerges. I am a warrior, a Kshatriya. I do not seek a battle. I will never strike the first blow, but I will not evade the fight either, because that's not my nature, not my guna. My inner landscape demands that I rise to every challenge with a sword in hand. The sword might be my mind, honed for battle by 4 older brothers who, having taught me to be fierce, then told me frequently that I was a pesky little brat, always ready for a fight. I thank them. They were my first teachers in handling my combative nature, my warrior guna. How and what determines our guna that every person has? The only one, as Panditji said, that is without it is the avatar, where the Atman requires no masking. What determines it? Yes, it could be, as Panditji said, the moment of our birth, a past life, who knows? Whatever its origin, we all have it. What can give our lives meaning when we find ourselves on the battlefield? One of the most useful things is to deeply understand what we have within to meet the challenge we are faced with. The defining of these guna, these varna, was taught to me by Swami Agnivesh, founder of Bandhu Mukti Moksha, the Bonded Labor Liberation Front. The Brahmin, he said, is the one who steps back from the battle, who invites us to pause and seek deeply inner truths and scriptural guidance. He or she does this while the warrior is making battle plans and the Vaishya is getting the community ready to endure, and the Shudra is seeing where his services are required. However, seeking the expression of Varna within myself was taught to me by my guru, Swami Venkateshananda. We can go to our birth chart and it can tell us, but Swamiji taught us the way of the yogin, pratyahara, to let that penetrating, intense gaze that we are always looking out at this world with into ourselves and allow your Varna to be revealed to you. It's not of importance to anybody else but ourselves. Uncover that inner guna and then learn how to express it in your life through action. As a Kshatriya, what is it that I will fight to protect and defend? This is going to give my life meaning. My dream for humanity is that we find our way out of this ugly distortion of race and caste system, a distortion imposed by colonization, and restore Varna. Then every challenge will become a learning process. Learning and growing from learning will then become our meaning. Every dark passage, no matter how we may painfully stumble along it, becomes filled with meaning because it becomes a means of taking us through our guna, even while we are acting on it, to an inner reality that is our eternal nature and everyone's eternal nature. Thank you all very much.
Om Swamiji, thank you very much indeed. At the beginning of our little conversation, we invoked a prayer to Devi Saraswati. We acknowledge that wisdom and knowledge are divinely feminine qualities. And I don't think anybody would doubt that we've been blessed with the contributions of some amazing teachers. So thank them very much. Thank you all very much.